All right, this is actually part 4 because Steve mentioned that he really wanted a chance to make the positive case for intelligent design. And so here's your chance.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. I was reading the questions from some of the people that had responded to some of the earlier posts, and people often think that intelligent design is nothing more than a critique of Darwinism. But in fact, there's a strong positive argument, a strong positive scientific argument to be made for intelligent design. And this was what I did in the book Signature in the Cell. And it starts with the recognition that you have something difficult to explain. And the thing that needs to be explained is the presence of digital code, of information in the DNA of every living organism. I was specifically concerned in the Signature in the Cell with what I call the DNA enigma, which is the mystery of the origin of information in the very first place. How do we get biological information in the first place, the information necessary to build even the first cell? And it's been a long-standing mystery in biology, and it's closely related to the mystery of the origin of the first life. You want to explain life, you have to explain the origin of information. It's just like with the computer. You want to provide a new function for your computer, you got to provide code. So as I addressed this mystery in my own investigations, it started back in the 80s when I was in grad school in England. I found that this really was a very vexing problem in a field called origin of life biology or chemical evolutionary theory. And as I investigated this, I found that there were many different approaches that have been made to try to solve the problem from within a materialistic framework, and they all failed for different reasons. And so I began to wonder if it was possible to make a positive scientific argument for intelligent design. And I concluded that it was. And the key thing, again, that has to be explained is this digital code. And it started back with Francis Crick's, what he called the sequence hypothesis, that the recognition that not only does DNA have this wonderful double helix shape, but there are 4 chemicals along the spine of the DNA molecule that function like alphabetic characters in a written language or digital characters in a machine code. And the origin of this information then is the critical question related to the origin of life. And I realized that there was actually a positive rationale for invoking intelligent design as a scientific explanation. And it happened for me partly because I started studying the works of Darwin, because I was interested in the method by which scientists investigate events in the remote past. I wanted to find out, is there a rigorous scientific hypothesis for intelligent design? And so the first thing I wanted to find out is, well, what does a good scientific hypothesis look like when you're trying to explain an origins event? And I discovered that there was a standard method of reasoning that Darwin used called the method of multiple competing hypotheses, or inference to the best explanation. And the idea is that you infer that cause which is known to produce, or uniquely known to produce, the effect in question. When you can do that, you can say, I've got the best explanation. So for example, if you're trying to explain the layer of ash in eastern Washington, I could posit perhaps a volcano or an earthquake or a flood. And the question is, which provides the best explanation? Well, obviously the volcano. We know that volcanoes produce volcanic ash, but we've never seen any evidence of earthquakes or floods doing that. So as I began to think about how historical scientists reason about the past and the criteria for deciding which type of explanation is best, I realized that actually the presence of information was a powerful indicator as to its true origin. Darwin's mentor, Charles Lyell, had a maxim. He said that scientists should be looking for presently acting causes, causes that we know from our present experience are capable of producing the effect in question. And I asked myself the question, what is the cause that we know from our present experience? What's the presently acting cause that is known to produce digital information? And when you frame the question that way,
as soon as you use the word digital,
yeah, it will, or information in alphabetic form, digital form, really information in any form. Whenever we find information and we trace it back to its source, whether we're talking about a hieroglyphic inscription, a section of software code, a radio signal, an information-rich radio signal, and when we trace information back to its source, we always come to an intelligence, to a mind, not a material process. In fact, there was an early information scientist who had applied information theory to molecular biology named Henry Quasler, who said that information habitually arises from conscious activity. Now, that tells us something about our experience, about our ordinary and uniform and repeated experience tells us that information arises from mind. So the discovery of information at the foundation of life in every living cell of every living organism, I argue, is a powerful indicator of prior intelligent activity. That's not a negative conclusion, simply a sort of default that we come to because Darwinism fails or chemical evolutionary theory fails. It's actually the best explanation or the strongest inference that we can make from a positive indicator of intelligence that we find in the cell, namely information. So the argument is a positive one based on positive evidence of intelligent design, not merely an argument from ignorance because Darwinism or chemical evolution fails.
Now, there was one other question you said you wanted to talk about, and I've just forgotten what it was.
Oh, well, just the whole question of again, is this scientific? And I think one of the things that, the way I frame the case, I answer all these various philosophical objections of that kind, but I think it's very important to realize that in making the case for intelligent design, I use the very method of reasoning that Charles Darwin used. I'm using the same scientific method. It's standard historical scientific reasoning. If you can't go back and look at something and verify it directly, how do you determine what happened? How do you determine what caused the events that you're interested in to arise? Well, you have to look at the clues that you have in the present and then use your knowledge of cause and effect to infer the best causal explanation of what happened in the past. And that's exactly what I did. Our knowledge of cause and effect says that information arises from one and only one source. That source is intelligence. So therefore, the presence of digital code in life is an indicator of that very type of cause, namely intelligence. So this is a scientific method of reasoning, and if people want to dispute that, then using that logic, they would also have to say that Darwin's theory of in the origin of species was also unscientific because he used the very same method of reasoning that I use. In fact, I modeled my case after, methodologically, I modeled my case after Darwin's. I just came to a different conclusion about design.
So the soundbite here is Steve Meyer of Discovery Institute admits he supports Darwin.
I support Darwin's method. In fact, I think he was a terrific innovator in historical scientific inquiry. I just think he didn't have enough information, enough data to know what we know now. I mean, in the 19th century...
Do you think if he were alive now, he'd be coming to the same conclusions?
I don't know. It's always impossible to speculate about someone's, kind of motives or inclinations. But I think...
Wouldn't it be interesting to have him here now?
Oh, absolutely. And I have tremendous admiration for Darwin. I mean, he formulated a brilliant case. He was very rigorous in his methods. But, he didn't know anything about digital code in DNA or nanotechnology in cells or many of the things that we know today. So,
all right. Well, thank you very much. I think that we should stop here because otherwise I can't see uploading.
You can't get it uploaded.
Yeah,
very good.
yeah. But I would love to get as many people here to record as many interviews. But thank you, Ricochet, and Steve will be joining you to take your questions.
Thanks for hearing me out. Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks for being at the conference too. It's terrific.
I'm glad I'm here.